From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day, presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet on the Ticats Audio Network. It is week 19, and the 8-8 Ticats are playing home to the visiting BC Lions, who are coming in here trying to fight and claw and scratch for that first place in the West, going up against a Ticats team that is on a roll right now, won 5 of their last 7. And Mike Daly, tell me how the Ticats made it back to this point when the beginning of the season looked so bleak. They found a way. They stayed, what Coach O says, they hung in there, and now they've got an opportunity to finish the season over 500 with a great opponent coming in today in the BC Lions. You've got to feel a little bit of excitement.
Yeah, for sure. There's excitement, absolutely. And the way they played last week against Edmonton, right? Being able to see Bo Levi Mitchell in there, drive down the field, score a touchdown. It was really good to see, right? And Tiger Town feels good about that. And Court, I got to give you props, man, because last game going into Sask, we weren't really sure how they were going to go about these last few games, right? Okay, are you going to put in Schiltz and try to win right now? Or are you going to let Bo Levi take the reins? What it looks like they're doing, and it's a great strategy, is it's almost like they're using these last 3 games, and dare I say it, as kind of like a preseason warm-up for the playoffs, right? Because to bring Bo Levi Mitchell in there for one drive, have him go down there, great, Bo, we got you some reps, saw what we needed to see. Schiltz goes in there, plays awesome, which we know it's important to have 2 really good quarterbacks. But I'm getting excited to see kind of what's going to go these next 2 weeks, right? Obviously, this game still matters. A home field playoff matters, but not quite as important as getting into the playoffs, a hot team, no matter where you have to play. And I do like the game plan that, the Ticats are playing right now with this whole preseason / end of season look, trying to get everyone rolling again.
Yeah, and we won't bury the lead at all. Bo Levi Mitchell is going to start at Tim Hortons Field in week 19 for the very first time this season. It couldn't be more appropriate for number 19 to be back at the helm, wearing the black jerseys that are so familiar to the Tim Hortons Field faithful. And in that opening series that he had, 4 of 6 for 129 yards and a touchdown, a short day's work, but he was effective. And he found his guys. He found the openings that you would expect a guy like Bo to find, and he got the ball down the field. It was something to watch. It was surgical. It was precise. He made the right decisions, most importantly. And when the Ticats score that early, they are dangerous, because we talked about it so long this season. They struggled to score in the first quarter. They struggled to score early. Then they started moving the ball, and they were getting field goals. They went down and scored a touchdown, then went on to have their most dominant performance of the season. So I think a lot of folks are real energized in that Ticats locker room right now, and that's just one of the factors that would have them excited. You got to give Matt Schiltz some respect too, because he is not one of these quarterbacks who just comes in the game for quarterback sneak. All due respect to those who sneak the ball. But, I mean, this guy was 271 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 16 out of 19. That is a day on its own, and he did that in 3 quarters. So the Ticats right now are giving defensive coordinators around the league notice that you're going to have to prep for this team. This is not going to be the walk in the park you might have thought it had been in the first little part of the season.
Yeah, and the nice thing too is with Matthew Schiltz, like him being able to get 9 yards a run as well. Like we've talked about this before on the show, but having to deal with a running quarterback, it changes your defensive game plan completely, right? And now to see if Bo can get comfortable and start slinging the rock out there, well, it doesn't have to be a one or the other. Right now, you can start opening up this offense into packages where you bring Matthew Schiltz in, like we have seen in the past time and time again, have a couple design quarterback runs, but also he's not just a running quarterback. So now it is that package for a Matthew Schiltz, which might be, maybe 5-10 plays out of a game, even more. That now has that threat of being a downfield passing game. as well as Bo Levi Mitchell being able to come in there and run the complete offense, finding his open targets, checking it down when he needs to, going over the top when he needs to. It's a pretty exciting time. But Court, I will reel it back just a little bit, because what we have seen in the past is this little bit of a roller coaster, right, from the Ticats. We have seen where it's been big wins in the past, and then it's followed up with kind of a slower output game, right? I look back to that Toronto one, especially after the big BC win. I look to the Winnipeg one. There was a very, positive, and everybody's excited about that SAS game, but what an opportunity to come up against BC, who's also fighting for first place in the West, right? And they're going to get their best BC team in front of them. What a good opportunity here for the Ticats to really see where they stand in terms of the whole CFL landscape as well.
Well, this BC team is going to be a challenge. They are one of the better teams in the league. They've had a great season by all intents and purposes, especially with the vacancy left by Nathan Rourke when he left the team. There was a lot of question marks heading into the year, but Vernon Adams leading the CFL right now in passing yardage. When VA shows up in a game, he can be extremely dangerous. You talked about Matt Schultz running with the ball. VA can do it as good as anybody. And he's got playmakers like Rhymes and Hollins over there, Hatcher. Guys are just able to not only catch the ball, but then after they get the ball, those guys are fast and they can get yards after the catch as well. So there's problems to deal with on that BC side, and they're a worthy opponent. They're coming into this game 11 wins, 5 losses, and they still have something to play for, like you mentioned. So nobody will be sleepwalking into this one. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff. Everybody's going to be ready, primed for that nighttime under the lights action that I always used to get excited for. It's almost as if we're programmed as athletes. As soon as they cut on those lights, a little extra is put into every move. Every opportunity is just a little bit bigger. So I expect BC to be firing on all cylinders. So why don't we just quickly dive into this BC team and look at their offense. So they've got a lot of stars all over the place. Whether it's Lucky Whitehead, Vernon Adams, Dominic Rhymes. But how do you see this offense when you're looking at the scouting report? How do they attack teams, and what makes them dangerous on this offense?
Yeah, they throw, and throw the ball some more. They are last in rushing. They're absolutely last in rushing, right? So what they are relying on right now is Vernon Adams, this offensive line that's doing a great job, right? Last week they gave up quite a bit of sacks. I think they gave up 6 to Vernon Adams, right? And that's a little bit of him holding on to the ball, but he's able to do that because of what you talked about. He's able to move in the pocket a little bit. But this receiving core is as dangerous as it comes in the league, right? You look across the board from Hollins out at that Z receiver on the field side that we talked about. All he does is make huge plays, right? Bomb plays. Vernon Adams will throw that thing up there. If he has a one-on-one, he trusts his guys because they've shown that they can come down with it, right? Keon Hatcher is one of the best receivers in the league, right? Dominic Grimes, same thing. And Javon Catoy, who's going to be in that number 3 receiver slot, right? Kind of where you see the Keandre Smiths now, maybe a little bit in the past, like a Tyreek McAllister for the Ticats. He's right inside as a huge body target, right? Think of the old school Andy Fantus, like a 6'6" body in there that's able to carve some DNs out on the run game, but also just give a big open body for Vernon Adams to throw to. So what they're going to do is they're going to be who they are. Vernon Adams averages 350 in the air, 350 yards in the air, and they're not going to change, right? So when you look at this Ticats defense and what they're going to have to do is hey, we're going to have to play pretty thin in the run game because we're going to have to try to cover down on some of these receivers just because of the skill level that's out there.
And when we entered the game 2 weeks ago and there was a last-minute position change in the defensive backfield, that gave Ticats fans pause because you had the same defensive backfield, mostly in the boundary specifically, for the entire 15 weeks leading up to that. And then you all of a sudden enter Will Sunderland into the picture, and now you have Dexter Lawson in the picture. And you're starting to think to yourself, is this the best defensive lineup that the Ticats have put together all year? Because in the last 2 games, teams are struggling to score against this defense. And I think the big key has been the elimination of the explosive play. When they played against Toronto, we know that they were kind of bend but not breaking until they broke. And they gave up those big plays, those chunks, those cheap yards. That hasn't been happening lately. They've been keeping the top on, and everything has been in front where they could rally, tackle, and get teams off of the field on second down specifically. So is this team the best defense that the Ticats have had all year? Statistics would point that way.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue that too, right? Like you said, we were nervous about Kenneth George Jr. going into boundary halfback. Played awesome. Will Sunderland has been doing well, and he's been around the league long enough on practice roster, stuff like that, that he's gotten a little bit of experience behind him. But I think where it really changes the most is just the pressure that's getting put on quarterbacks up front, right? And it doesn't always come in the sacks, but it does come in pressure, right? And Coach O always used to tell us, pressure bursts pipes. And as long as you get a little bit of pressure on that quarterback, right, even though it's not a sack, they feel that. Right, and this D-line has been able to rotate with a healthy Dylan Wynn back, right, with Jaguar Davis in there playing better than he has been, right, Malik Carney, same thing. They've been able to roll all these D-linemen and keeping them fresh like we talked about and getting some pressure on these quarterbacks, which in turn helps the coverage overall, right, helps guys like Will Sunderland, helps guys Kenneth George Jr., right, Dexter Lawson, those guys. It helps quite a bit, and I think that's where you're seeing, kind of the rounding out of this Ticats D-line, really helping out the rest of this defense and playing as well as they could be.
And, I mean, this D-line has been, fit and fill, get it in where you can fit it in. I mean, Ted Laurent not in the lineup, but you have the likes of Sales in there. You have Mo Diallo. You have Malik Carney. You have Jaguar Davis on the outsides. Jamal Davis, 2 sacks in 2 games. He must be loving it here. He's on a hot streak trying to keep things going. Mason Bennett there, still where do you even send the help if you're the offensive line? Not to mention you're going to have a guy like Edwards blitzing all the time, getting in your face. So there's going to be a test for that offensive line, and I think it'll be a good battle to watch. Interesting, though, because earlier in this season, you spoke about the need to bring pressure versus being able to rush with just 4 and how rushing with 4 can allow you to actually saturate the zones, take up some of those passing angles, close windows, make it tough on the quarterback. So you're exactly right, and I have to agree with you that the defensive line is where everything starts, and either continuing that trend and them getting on the same page, gelling even further, that can really propel this team. Or we see that it was kind of just, a couple lucky matchups that they had, and maybe the pendulum goes back the other way where it was earlier in the season where they were struggling to defend the run and whatnot. So it would be my hope that they can continue to apply pressure, especially on a team that doesn't run the ball that well. You can pin your ears back and go get the quarterback. So I'd love to talk about a couple changes that were made on the Ticats offense. We talked about a guy who joined the roster. He was inactive last week, but Hergy Mayala is in the lineup. He will be backing up Chris Osikusi at that Z receiver spot. And then behind Tyreek McAllister in the field slot, you've got Darrell Walker, who made his hay for many years with Darius Bowman in Edmonton, and then he went over to Saskatchewan. He was in Montreal. He's been a little bit of a journeyman as of late, but he's a 2-time All-Star in the CFL, known for running tremendous routes, specifically the intermediate and the deep routes. And he's a guy who's going to bring some leadership and some veteran savvy to this team, not to mention that because of his veteran status, he is able to be a designated American who can sub in for a Canadian. That right there is an underrated value that he brings to this team. So let's talk a little bit about this receiving core, which last game, they had 5 receivers with over 3 catches. Okay, so this is a balanced attack, Mike. How is BC going to look to stop this passing attack for the Ticats?
Yeah, and it's, Omar Bayless being out, that hurts a little bit. You saw the connection with Bo Levi early, and he's been having, a really good 2 games. But we know what Tyreek McAllister can do, right? Chris Osikusi, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do as well. But with Darrell Walker coming in there, like you said, it's a veteran presence, but those veteran receivers know how to get open, right? They're not just, if they have a dig, which is like a 10-yard in route, right? If they have like a 10 to 12-yard in route, a lot of younger receivers, what they'll do is they're like, okay, I'll run up 10 yards, I'll start running in, and I'll just keep on running in, right? And I'll keep on running in. The linebackers are going to be getting in the way. They're not really finding holes. They're hoping the quarterback can hit it. These veteran receivers that have been around for a while, they might take one of those dig routes, those in routes, and as soon as they get by one of the low zone guys or one of the linebackers, they'll sit right in that hole, right? Which is a quarterback's best friend, because instead of running and then going to the other linebacker where there's, now it's too hard to throw it to them for a risk of interception, they sit right in that open hole. They change up the route just slightly and the quarterback finds them. Those are the nice things about those veteran receivers that you can bring in, and Darrell Walker brings that, right? He is a savvy vet. Tim White, explosive game, right? Absolutely explosive game, but they also have a challenge, right? BC's defensive back crew is about as good as it gets as well, right? Like, I'll put them right up there with kind of how Toronto has been playing a little bit, because, especially on the boundary side, 2 of the harder positions, that boundary corner, right? That short side corner, and then that boundary half. They have TJ Lee, multiple-time All-Star, right? Gary Peters, same thing, multiple-time All-Star. They've played lots of games. These guys know what they're doing out there. And when you look at Terry Godwin and Tim White, who are kind of showing up on the scene and exploding for the Ticats, that's who they're going to end up having to face. So it'll be a good matchup out there for those guys.
And speaking of matchups, there's going to be a guy like Lucky Whitehead, who I felt was an amazing special teams player. He made his transition onto the offense. And, he still does a little bit in the return game now and then, but, he's a full-time offense guy now. And then the Ticats, they have their own guy who's, I don't know if he's made that transition yet. He lines up in the number 2 slot this week, Tyreek McAllister. I think the matchups where you have 2 people who are on the same side of the ball who don't actually go up against each other are cool, but I love the matchups where you've got guys who actually get a chance to affect each other, right? And I think that we have one guy on our team who could really take on the entire return unit from BC, and that would be Carthel Flowers Lloyd. This guy is an absolute machine. There's nobody in the CFL who's doing what he's doing this year. He has 28 special teams tackles. The next closest person has 19. So with 2 games remaining, he is a clear 9 tackles ahead. And I mean, we were talking about this before we press record, to get 9 tackles or 10 tackles in 2 games would mean you'd have to have 2 career games back to back. A guy like Carthel Flowers Lloyd has been dangerous this year. But Mike, I don't even know if it's worth talking about a matchup, but I want to hear from you. What makes Carthel Flowers Lloyd so good? Yeah, it's like, to put it in perspective, right? When you talk about special teams cover units, and everybody on special teams worries about how many tackles they're getting, right? Like, that is pretty much the sole stat that matters for all the special teams cover guys. When you look at it, a good year is getting 1 tackle a game, right? That's a good year on special teams, 1 tackle a game. Now we're getting to kind of the end of the season. 28 tackles is insane. It's insane. It's unheard of. What he's doing is incredible, right? And I know you touched on it, but it has to be reiterated. It is insane what he's doing, right? The reason he's so good, first of all, he's 6'2", 205, right? So yes, that's a big frame, but what he does is he runs as fast as the little DBs, the little receivers out there. He can fly, right? So that helps. That's number 1, right? But that's not everything. Number 2 is he's about as aggressive as a linebacker can get, right? As a D lineman can get. Anytime somebody goes to block him, because he's so big and he's so aggressive, he's able to throw these little blockers out of the way, essentially, right? And he is as fast as these returners. The third thing is the hustle on this guy is incredible, right? What he does is he chases down every single play because he believes
he can make every single tackle on special teams. And he can. He has been showing that. But what makes him so good is those three things combined, because what you do see around this league is a lot of guys will have maybe one or two of them, and those will be good players. But to be able to be big, strong, fast, and never give up on a play and just be determined to, you know what, I'm out there, I'm going to make this tackle. That's a hard three things to find as a cover guy, but he has it, and you see it, right? He's in front of the ball every time, and even if he's not making the tackle, he's affecting that return, and that's why this Ticats cover unit has been doing so well, because playing behind a guy like that, I mean, you just let him go down, wreck a bunch of stuff, and then clean up the tackle if he doesn't get it. So it's impressive what he's doing, and definitely should be stated that, you know, the big reason this cover unit is doing so well is solely because of him.
And you can see the energy he plays with every time he makes a tackle. It's like the first time he ever made a tackle, and not in a bad way, like in a great way. Like, he is bought in so much to the role that he has. He's taken ownership and pride in that unit accomplishing the task of pin him deep. It's almost like you can feel what he's thinking, and he's thinking, not on my watch. Nobody's getting outside of me. If I have the opportunity, I'm making it. One opportunity, one play made. And he makes open field tackles. Even if sometimes it's by a shoelace, he's getting them down, and it's been really fun to watch. So forget the matchups. I want to put the ISO cam on CFL as he continues to extend his lead on the CFL's special teams tackle list for the season. So, you know, before we wrap this one up, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different people. We talked about offense, defense. We talked about special teams. Are there any other people to highlight in this game for the fans while they're watching that they should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go back to the O-line to protect, because on BC, they have a guy named Matthew Betts and Woody Barron as well, who are two very good pass rushers, right? Matthew Betts is 16 sacks so far this year, right? He's one away from the Canadian record for BC. He's playing really, really well, right? And he's putting a ton of pressure on the quarterback. Just like I said that the Ticats D linemen are doing, he is solely a reason for speeding these quarterbacks up, making them make bad decisions. So the matchup I'm looking for is Tyrone Riley and Jordan Murray are going to see him as well. But those two guys are really going to have to get Matthew Betts under control. And look, it's not just going to be those two guys, right? It's also going to be Felix Gauthier coming in, helping out on a chip, right? A Keandre Smith, before he runs his route, just run right through the front of Matthew Betts and then go run his under route or his like quick out, something like that. There's going to be a bunch of different things where he's going to be chipping and getting, you know, kind of slowed down on the way to the quarterback. But when the chips are down and they need a big play, at some point these guys are going to have to hold up in a one-on-one matchup. So that's kind of the guy I'm looking to slow down a little bit on that BC defense, and Jordan Murray and Tyrone Riley are really going to be focused on that.
And I mean, those guys have been doing a great job all year long. Since Jordan Murray came into this offensive line, we haven't heard his name much, which is the best compliment you can give an offensive lineman. So it will be exciting to see how this all plays out, especially with number 19 making his black uniform debut in front of the home crowd at Tim Hortons Field, 7 p.m. Eastern, when BC takes the field to try to disrupt this 2-0 Ticat team who's been on a roll for the last couple of weeks. So make sure you're there tonight. And if you can't make it, you know where to listen in at listen.ticats.ca, where, as always, Bubba O'Neill and Andy Fantuz have the pregame show for you. And then shortly after that, you've got RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker, who will be covering the game. And if you've never listened to their broadcast, do yourself the favor. I don't even care if you're walking around the stadium. Turn that thing on and listen to RJ and Luke. These guys are amazing. So thank you for Hey, let me ask you a question. Daly, have you ever listened to RJ and Luke?
I have, and it's awesome. The way Luke explains the game and the way RJ, it's awesome. You got to listen to it because it is a ton of fun, and they have a ton of insight information that is awesome to hear while you're watching.
Yeah, I thought so. You know, you gotta eat your own cooking, man. You can't tell people to do something you never done. So, hey, for all the folks here at Tiger Cats Game Day presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet, my name is Courtney. His name is Mike Daly, and as always, we hope you have a great game day.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.